Well, 6 o'clock, and we got another one at 7, so let's get going. All right. So, back, and I look back, Christ, I got a thing from January of 14, I think it started before that, with, when we formed the Losap committee, the fire department approached the Board of Selectmen, and at a later date, the Board of Finance, about forming a Losap committee to discuss the length of service awards program for the department. It was based on similar plans in surrounding towns, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, because I couldn't find the original proposal, it was a $500 a month length of service awards. That's okay, I got it, pretty sharp. And based on 20 years at age 65, $500 a month, and it was going to be based on the current standards that are used for the tax abatement program. Member in good standing, met all the requirements. Based on that, we had formed a committee to go forward with it, look at it with members from the department. And it's kind of seemed like ground to a halt. There's been a lot of different ideas flying around, all kinds of things. Nobody can seem to pin it down to one thing or another. I think the Milliman original report said that if we went with the 500 and at 65 and 20, the initial outlay from the town would have been about $150,000. And then it was based on an annual contribution, I don't know if I'm right or not, $70,000 or $80,000 after that to keep the fund funded based on the census and what the current projections were going to be by the actuary. So we're gathered together here. It's almost Thanksgiving, so we should almost start singing a song. But where are we going with this? I mean, that's what I'm trying to drill down to. We're trying to drill down to. It's been going on for a year. There's a lot of things seem to go on for a year, Brad, right?
Yes, sir.
Let's drill down. Let's figure out where we're gonna get to get some kind of closure to this, either one way or the other. And I'm sick of hearing about this one's got this idea, this one's got this. These guys are fighting over here. Let's figure it out. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Massey.
Okay, well, we talked to you guys about it, and we spent $5,000 of our own money, or 12,000, excuse me, to hire a company to come in and do it. In good faith, they did it.
Do it is what?
Came up with a proposal for the town to do our fencing. And when we went from the department committee to the town committee, two of our people went there, and they formed the town committee. And our $12,000 deal just got thrown out without even batting an eyeball. So here's another one. And I don't have one to pass out.
We can make copies.
But basically, excuse me?
Who threw it out?
No. There were alternative proposals made based on the end.
Yeah.
Wasn't thrown out.
So
Wasn't thrown out. No decision being
That was the first blush.
here's one for, it would make everybody equal. Meaning the old guys would get their money, 500, and then the categories going down for all the years, and so much a year to do the catch up over a 10-year period, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, 10 years.
And the total of that is $202,900 a year. And after that's all caught up and said and done with, it goes to what they wanted, the $1,500 a year into that.
We haven't even heard any of that stuff yet.
Oh,
So
Nothing's coming to the board.
nothing's coming to us.
Or-
So I need a synopsis of where we are.
Okay, so we've been working since January. And, you know, as we just heard, what came to us was $500 a month based on 20 years of service, like Billy just said, the same criteria that we use for the tax abatement program. And one of the things that, or some of the things that we started talking about, because we had a committee together, so obviously people had different ideas, was, first of all, was this the most cost-effective way for the town to go forward, number one. Number two, would it be possible for us to come up with something that might, in the future, be more beneficial to the younger guys coming in? And one of the things that we talked about doing was setting up, and I'm gonna get this wrong, a
57.
The plan, yeah.
457.
Deferred plan.
It'd be an 8 plan.
So basically, a retirement. And what we were throwing around is that for every year of service, for each year that a person would be able to get the abatement, they would get $1,000 into an account from the town that would go into a retirement fund that then they could earn money on over the entire length of time that they're in the fire department. And when they left, or they became retirement age, they could start collecting off of that fund. The fund would be portable, they could move it if they left the fire department. And this was something that we thought of, maybe not in addition to or instead of, but just a thought, that this might be something, because a lot of towns are starting to go more toward retirement plans than pensions, and we thought it was something we could control on a budgetary basis, because we would know exactly how much money would go into it every single year. And, you know, the younger you are, the more attractive it looked, obviously. But it was something that we felt we could phase in that made a lot of sense to a lot of people. So that left us with, well, what do we do with the folks that are already retirement age? And what about the guys who had already put years of service in? What are we going to do with those prior years of service? How do we, reward for that, because that's what this is, like the service program. So then, of course, you can't really come up with a consensus, but one of the ideas was to buy out the years of service that these guys already have in. The question with that is, how much what's the buyout, and how much can the town afford? So we sort of came up with, or started talking about this sort of hybrid plan where if you were under a certain age, you would start getting $1,000 a year and get bought out for every year of service you had. And then we kind of came to a standstill because there are obviously, when it went back to the membership, the major concerns or the major, I don't want to use, I'm going to use a bad word, gripe, I guess?
Drawbacks.
Drawbacks. There's always going to be a certain age group that's going to be treated differently. And, how do we handle that? So we're sort of at a standstill at the moment. I think we all agree that the $1,000 per year into a retirement account for each year of service is a great idea.
Depending on the age.
Depending on the age. Obviously, if you're 2 years away from retirement with a year of service left, it's not really going to be all that attractive to you.
How many people are we talking about that meet all the requirements for how many bodies?
Right now, we budget for about 80 guys for the tax payment program every year.
80?
$56,000 was last year's budget.
Because not every
Not everybody owns a home.
volunteer takes the
Somebody's
full
getting a
house.
payment for a car or whatever, yeah.
Yes, there's 80 individuals that are in that.
Yes.
Qualified.
So, and I'll just take credit for the idea, or at least presenting it to the fire department. One of the things that I was thinking was, for the guys that are at the point where they are retiring, that we do the $500 a month pension, and then, I can't remember the age that, and I know this wasn't received well, but under the age of 55, we would do a buyout, and then roll in that $1,000 program. But that just created, a whole layer of.
They almost ran me out of town.
No, that's.
But there wasn't consensus
That's not
on the
true.
committee. There wasn't consensus on the
But we didn't have consensus on the committee, and, we're at the point now where the real question is, what can the town afford to do? I mean, I really think that's obviously what the bottom line here is. I mean, I don't think that any of us are gonna argue that these guys don't deserve, to have something that's similar to what a lot of the other towns surrounding us are doing. Madison's doing this, Old Saybrook's doing this, Kenilworth's doing this. We just wanna make sure that whatever we do, we fund it properly, we can predict it, and, we don't break the bank, obviously. So, it's kind of where we're at.
I'd like to make a comment. I think there's also another school of thought, principally mine, that I think there's been uniform consensus, and apologize to those who dissent, on the plan for prospective, where someone has a year of service to get $1,000 goes to an investment account and for the next however many years until retirement, they earn whatever that account earns. We have to acknowledge, however, that the folks that are nearing retirement, in your example, have already been provided a tax abatement for several years beforehand. And the times prior to today, looking back 30 years, have been very robust as far as what you could have done with that money all along the way. So there's another school of thought, again, which is mine, that the folks that are near or at retirement have been paid already for that prior year service.
Tax abatement has not been around that long where that would qualify as any kind of a compensatory.
And I don't believe,
Plus, it's a separate and different item completely from what most of.
Dave, I don't believe the discussion has come to the point where it's one or the other. We talked about a Losap, we didn't condition it when we formed the committee, it was gonna be one or the other. Now, that could come forward in a proposal from the committee, but that was not a condition of the committee's, that was about a plan going forward. And, you know, I hate to say it, you're probably right, people could have done different things with their money, but, you know, in this day and age, that's not what happens. So that's why I worry about sometimes with if you give them $1,000 a month, unless we, $1,000 a year, unless we control where that fund is and manage it, that's not gonna work either. And that just adds another layer of administrative work for the town.
Why do you say that?
It does, because somebody's who's gonna administer the fund.
Well, of course, but any plan you put in, especially a $500 a month, will require an actuary. I mean,
It requires-
any plan will have more administrative costs than that plan.
Okay.
That's true.
Listen, my theory is keep it simple, stupid, okay? That seems to work in life. The simpler you keep it, the easier the path is. I mean, all these different hybrids and this and that, you're talking huge numbers for a buyout. That's $600,000.
See that, if you turn to the second to the last page, the total department payout per year for 10 years is $212,500. Then it goes down to we got 1,500 in here a year. And not 1,000, 1,500 a year. That's after the 10 years. So in other words, the first 10 years, everybody except for the older guys are gonna have to do with a catch-up program. So when they retire, they're gonna end up getting the $500 a month.
Wow. And then again, I go back to it's $500 a month, a set number.
No, because they come back,
I remember Bruce John Batista here, he yelled at me about 10 years ago, or 8 years ago, about the $500 a month or the $600. I said, what if we offer 3? That's BS.
No.
That's crazy. So what if we went to a different number? It's a lower number, half the number. You got nothing now.
So the catch-up period, you're saying is 10 years of 200,000?
212.5 is this.
212.5 a year?
Yes.
No, the catch-up is, worst case scenario, the first up to 9 years, but depending on who, the spreadsheet that this,
$54,000 a year.
let me just say, what I did is I just threw these numbers in just because nobody had numbers. So I just took the numbers and put them in there to plug them into place so people could see what there is. The people that are 65 today and older, if this went into effect tomorrow, at the end, would get their $500. There's not 9, it's 7.
I was hearing 10.
No, it's only 7, because there was 2 different lists, and it's 7. So there's 7 people that would automatically go on there. There's people that are now 55 to 64 years old. Within the 10 years of my 10-year makeup plan, the maximum number at the 10th year, if everybody stayed alive and everybody went on the plan, would be $212,500. with a 10-year, you have to be in the department 10 years to start getting this, because that's one of the things that Omar had stipulated,
Which I agree with.
okay? But, so that's why there's the number, there's no number for new people coming in.
What is that 200,000? I don't quite understand that.
It's the buyout for the people that already are in the department, already have 5 years or more service. Depending on how many years you had is how much you would get for each year. So somebody who had 20 years today in the department, for the next 10 years, would get $3,000 a year. Put into this annuity at the end of the year, so that at the end of 10 years, it'd be $30,000. People that had 15 to 19 years would get, I just used 2,500 just for a number. I went down 500 for each category, for 10 years. 10 years would be $2,000 a year for 10 years, so it would be 20, 25, 30. Okay, the people below that would only be for the number of years that they had in the department. So if you only had 5 years, you'd only get $1,500 for 5 years retro, guaranteed to you. After that, you have to put years of service in the department to get your 1,000 or 1,500 or whatever that number is. Do you know what I'm saying? If you had 10 years, you're already vested, so therefore you get your 10 years. You're already vested in, that's how I came up with it. 10-year vested, so anyone with 10 years or more is guaranteed to get. If you had 10 years in the department, if this went into effect, you got hurt, you could no longer be a member. You're gonna get, after the end of 10 years, $20,000 in that account.
Based
No
on
more,
Based on the current census,
right, based on.
and no new members. So what happened, the new members would then go into the $1,000 a year plan
Yes, after 5 years,
after 5 years.
yes. Or whatever that number is.
Oh, that makes sense.
They wouldn't get it right off the bat. It would be, after their 5th year, then they would be eligible to start getting $1,000 put in their account. That's what I base that on.
And this benefit is a retirement benefit of $500 a month?
Well, no, it's not guaranteed. Because it's what, at the end, when you turn 65, I have a similar plan with the 427. I put money into it through my account. At the end, when I can decide if there's $40,000 in there, and I say I want to draw from this for the next 10 or 15 years, I go to my guy.
So this isn't what he was suggesting, this is a different.
You could, depending how it was done and listening to Omar's numbers, depending on what the interest rates are, how the markets do, you could end up being able to draw for this for several years at $500 a month. Yes, you could.
Well, for separate, right, that's
Right.
different than a lifetime benefit.
Right, no. But here's the difference. If one of those guys passes away, that benefit ends. If I pass away,
No, I
my
understand.
family member gets to take that money. It goes to, that's the trade-off. My fund, I can give to dependents.
Yeah, you
They
bet.
cannot. That's the trade-off that I see,
Yeah, no, I understand it.
okay? That's,
So the buyout is $116,000,
would be 116,000 at this,
and 96,000 would cover the 16.
yeah, but that's not all up front. Like I said, really, just not all, you know what I'm saying, that's 50, the guys that are 55, you have to wait 10 years before they get on that. But that was using the numbers that I was given. And like I said, if you change the numbers, it's just a matter of plugging it in to come up with what it is.
And then the ongoing cost that keeps on getting is the
80,000.
80,000 a year.
Well,
Right now.
I think that would chop down fast, because there's a lot of people that are over retirement age.
So once they hit the retirement, they get one or the other. They get $1,000, they get
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't,
right. Once you hit 65, you're shut off at $1,000 a month.
Right, yeah. Or if you're not an active.
Or if you're not, and if you become inactive, you get shut off on $1,000 a year.
Right.
I keep using a month.
Maybe
Man.
that's
Wouldn't that be
the
nice
deal.
in a real world?
Can I go to work for
Happy
you?
days.
I mean, I think we're all in agreement with the $1,000 a year program moving forward.
Well, for the guys that are probably between 40 and younger, they're gonna be around for a while, or 45 and they're gonna be around for a while. The end benefit for them is gonna be more than this was gonna be. I mean,
No, the end benefit started even if you're 64.
$1,000 a year.
Sure, I mean, whether you want to, the prior year service is a different discussion.
Right.
I mean, that, this is a different plan. The problem with looking at this plan versus other plans that were tossed out is you have to take a look in today's dollars, or you're not making the right decision. And an annuity, without the bells and whistles of the original plan that I heard of with Survivor Advantage, but if you just took a single person, it's unfortunately passed, but that's when it stops. At age 65, that contract costs about $90,000. At 58, it costs about $70,000. So you take your census, you multiply by that, and that's your true cost today. This here, you'd have to, since this is annual, you have to present value it back, but for 10 years, I mean, this is gonna be roughly $1.6 million, would be my guess.
Which was, this was,
That was probably $2 million.
$1.5 million, $1.5 million, $3
Yeah, I
million.
mean, those are big, and that's today.
Comparable.
Yeah, you can guss it up and say, well, it's only $500 a month, but in today's dollars, that's the number. I mean, that's what you're talking about.
Well, I go back to the committee, because there's still a committee. We're not here to make decisions tonight.
No, I just.
We're
I
just
wanted
to hear it.
some
We wanna hear about it, we wanna hear what's
Yeah.
going on. I go back to the committee. Now, is this something the committee, and maybe Todd could run some numbers on this?
Yeah, and I'd run a
That's
lot.
your bailiwick. We'd go back and talk about it.
Yeah, I kind of just wanted some feedback too as well from.
Is this something that the Board of Finance Board of Selectmen would,
I just want to make a comment. You know, if the town decides to go ahead with this, it's very important that we fund this thing with the right dollars.
Initially.
Because we don't want
right.
underfunded liabilities here, because that results in future tax increases. And we can't have that.
That's why, having something like this, only when you're gonna have to put in annually, have an
Yeah,
actuary.
My recommendation to that would be if whatever's done from prior year service, whatever form that takes, the town should buy the contract. Someone will sell that contract. You buy the contract and you're done. I mean,
On it.
because the next day, you can see the police pension, with all the great try of getting all the estimates right, there's $7 million in the hole. That comes back to the town. If the committee's decision is to have some sort of element of prior year service payment, great, fine. Not how I would do it, the committee says. But I would suggest what he's saying, kill it on day one, or you might eat it forever.
That's right.
It's
I come out of the
it's why
insurance
corporate
world, and I
America's
can
getting
tell
away
you
from
that
these
you've got to
bonds.
do it, or you're really going to pay the piper forever.
Anybody have any questions or?
But there's a reason they get out of it. There's a reason.
Well, I don't know what my question should be, because this is all the first I've heard of all of this.
But I've got one more comment, which is something that the committee's got to think about. At the end of the day, the town's got to pay for it. And given today's resources, everybody should just bear that in mind when they're making a decision, because we've got some big projects going on in town. So ultimately, this will go further into the tax base. I mean, I'm sure you're all aware of that, but if it's a big nut, it's a big nut.
I go back to an earlier statement. That top, and then the buyout is the $500 a month of the written in stone number.
Is it what?
Is it a written in stone number, the
No.
$500 a month?
Exact number.
Is that a number that could be negotiated, so that $54,000, I'm just using the numbers on the paper, I know they're down to 7 or they're down to this. You cut that in half, that 54 goes to 27, and the buyouts get cut in half, and that drops that number down too. If you go to 250. I mean, you know, this is not a, this is negotiation too. I mean, I go back to, it's all part of a negotiation.
As a
Willie,
starting point.
that number represents a value below the lowest payout of any of the surrounding
I
towns.
understand, Dave, and we've talked about this, and I understand, but the problem is, most of those guys got that thing 20, 25 years ago. Things were a lot different. And it's unfortunate that 20, 25 years ago, when none of us were sitting at this table, the town didn't act to do something for the department. But I go back to, and I hate to use the word it's better than nothing, but this is what something is better than nothing. And I'm not talking about taking away the abatement, some people are. I'm not looking to take away anybody's abatement. This is an incentive to,
So which one do you wanna cut, the old guys or the new guys?
to be everybody, Mike, across the board. Hey, it's all for one or all for, yeah,
you
it's the
can't,
Three
you can't
Musketeers.
single people out.
Right. We're not like the police
I mean, if you
department.
drop it $50, you look at your last page, it goes from 96 to 84,000, 86,400.
I'm not, you know.
That's just the old guys.
So I'm throwing out to you guys, you're on the committee, sit down, work it out. Numbers are numbers. The problem is the initial number changes what's going on into the future. All right, if you drop that initial, it's gonna change what's happening going on in the future. Because it's gonna carry forward in time. You'll be dead, I'll be dead, somebody else is gonna be paying for
I
it.
won't even get any of that.
All right.
I'll be dead before.
You've been dead twice already, for God's sakes, you're still here. I'm gonna just go.
But your point is well taken, I mean, some people get paid for 30 years or more.
Okay? I mean, is that some kind of a charge, marching orders, that the committee can like, almost try to wrap their hands around and go forward? And meet, that's the key, you gotta meet.
And what?
And have a
Meet, you
deadline.
gotta meet.
Yeah, we've been meeting.
When do you wanna meet, when do you want something back? Let's get something back.
Twice a month. Todd, do you think you can run over somehow?
December, January?
I mean, I know you can, are you willing to?
Yeah, I want it for next year.
Question.
Do that by January.
I feel like it's a bit of a pointless exercise without a horizon about exactly what the town is willing to pay.
Well, yeah.
But you're not
I
gonna
just
know,
think-
you really never.
It's hard to say what the town's gonna be willing to pay, you don't know.
And you have to, it's important, I think, Willie, I mean, look, I support the idea of doing something. I don't know the numbers, I'm not a numbers cruncher, but, you know, the idea of half a loaf is better than no loaf. Keep in mind, it can get increased, you know, part of the problem perhaps is you're coming at this at, unfortunately, at the wrong time. I mean, the economy's still tough.
It's not their fault, they've come back.
And I
We've been here for 20 years, it
Right.
didn't work.
No, understood, right?
Very
But
good.
you gotta remember, this gotta be sold to all our neighbors, everybody in town. Nobody gets, I mean, very few people now, when they start jobs, are getting pensions, they're getting these.
It's not the initial drop.
Right.
The additional drop is an appropriation more than likely. Right? That's the start, that's the, you know, the seeds in there, the babies grow, okay? It's annually, what are we gonna have to contribute? We're putting $1 million a year into the police pension now, to meet our, what is it gonna cost on an annual basis going forward? That's what we gotta be able to solve. Because that's incrementally gonna increase our budget.
And Gaz is pushing very hard on the OPEB deficits in town.
We're fine,
Man,
we're good, don't worry about our OPEC. Jan and
Don't
I,
worry
we
about
already
it.
got it figured out, we're good, we're set up.
it's only money.
Board of Ed is the one, you, Board of Ed people, you know, that's the problem. Now you're on the Board of Ed, I can hammer you.
I keep saying no.
Can I say something?
Go ahead, Ken.
It's just, I don't want to lose fact, the site that this is called the Losap, the Length of Service Awards Program. Clinton Volunteer Fire Department is a volunteer fire department. These guys don't get paid, they don't get anything. They put many, many, many hours in, not only fighting fires, but training and going through it. I've personally been there for 44 years. I didn't join the department to make money. I didn't join. I do it because. However, in this day and age, the younger people, it's harder and harder to get people into the department. And the length of service program is, maybe we can get them a award for coming in and helping us. Is what this whole length of service is about, to be able to maintain what we've got before we wind up, this department has to wind up doing something other that may not be as tasteful to the department, to the town. And, you know,
Jeffrey, do you have
that's just what I want to remind everybody of.
ambulance included in this?
Yep.
Is ambulance included in this?
Yep.
Seems to get more and more people doing ambulance because they get paid for runs.
That's been.
I don't know what numbers are in there.
I see more young kids doing the ambulance now than I ever saw before.
Well, that's because they just got trained.
Yeah, but seems like that.
Right?
Just for my information, because I don't know how far back it goes, how long have we had the tax abatement? You'd mentioned that it wasn't always
In
there.
1995.
Was that it? Okay.
Yeah.
2004.
2004.
That was
2004.
It
was
$1,000.
It was $1,000 when we first got it, and that was taxable, so we went up at like $500-600, so it's not $1,000 tax abatement like it would.
And it's not $1,000 handed to you, it's $1,000
Off
off
your
your,
taxes.
Yes,
your property.
for the taxes.
Yeah, and then you gotta pay tax.
So if you don't own
on
property,
We've been getting covered.
last year we
it.
put,
You've been covering FICA.
Yeah, FICA.
yeah,
That's
last
not
year I think
state
Melanie
tax
said,
and
that-
federal.
I think it was $56,000 was the tax rate for 77.
That's what we had, for almost 80 people, 56,000.
Yeah. Because a lot of people,
And it's been as high, since I've been here, it is like 75 or 80,000.
the 100th anniversary was 77 people.
Yeah.
That's the high,
How much paid out?
54.
This year is 56.
Yeah, 56. Which is one of the higher years.
50, this year, no, it actually has gone down. Because we get our numbers from Melanie,
Yeah, Melanie was going to say that.
so,
All right,
all right.
next Thursday, guys? Yeah?
Next Thursday?
You talking to
Yep.
Yeah, I'm talking
committee?
about- yeah.
Yeah.
Next Thursday.
Firehouse, what time?
20.
5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock? What time?
I think you should do it at the Aqua.
That works well.
Nothing will happen then, nothing will happen then.
And what do we get done?
Let me have your credit card.
4 o'clock.
May come out
same
smiling,
time.
nothing will happen.
Wait, let's do it by email instead of doing it
All
here,
right.
but, probably later in the afternoon.
5 o'clock?
4 o'clock's not working for me.
Let's go to 5.
5?
Fine.
Okay, we'll email it around and
I'm in
then
London.
post it. Oh, you can't do Thursdays.
He's
Can't
away.
do Thursday, but I'm gonna be.
You're out of the country, man.
Okay. All right. We'll
You're
email
going this week, you
around
can
and
see the
that's
Cowboys
right.
right there.
What's that?
They're going this week, you can see the Cowboys.
All right.
Got your priorities. Okay, I guess this meeting's over. Motion to adjourn?
We'll adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?